Diamond and Silk break down the white mob. I think it's finally like I feel seen, and I'm very excited to hear what Diamond and Silk think about me and whether or not they remind. I hope they remind me to go to ChatDit.
Hey y'all, welcome to Diamond and Silk Crystal Clear.
Hi.
Your host Diamond and Silk.
Oh yes, you are.
And Silk, oh Silk.
Diamond on diamond.
Okay, so a lot of stuff.
I don't know what that. We don't know what that means. We still don't know why they've got the O apostrophe like they're Lawrence O'Donnell.
Has jumped off this week.
Yeah.
Lawrence O'Donnell.
And I just
please, Rachel and Lawrence start saying it like Rachel O'Mato, Lawrence O'Donnell.
start to show off by saying more political hustle and race baiting is going on.
Yes, it is.
So now you have Jim Crow Joe. He's still on his mission of stoking the flames of racism and division in our country.
Yeah.
That's right. By going there and listening to people's history and their experience and hearing them and going, oh, what parts can we answer to? What parts is it just you turn a positive ear to? What the acceptance of someone else's lived experience is a horrifying thing and will burn our country.
Yes, he is.
He is
Yes, he is. So it's so true.
so desperate to keep
Oh, he's so desperate to actually give a shit.
black people up under his thumb. He went back
Up under his thumb? Okay.
100 years
Up under
to
his
the
thumb.
Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre.
Yes, he sure
And
did.
started talking about that.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you why he did.
Yeah, tell me why he did. Because he's the president and it was a major racial issue that was coming up and it needed attention, and he went there and listened to people and spoke to their needs and tried to find a solution.
This is what I call the 52 fake out.
Why you call it
The 52 fake out.
a 52
Because
fake
in
out?
the
Yeah, why do you call it that?
They don't have no solution. But what they have is a narrative. Okay.
Okay, there's no solution to the Tulsa massacre. It's a okay.
And they like to stroke what? Racism and division.
That's what they do.
Okay. So the Democrats, what they're desperately trying to do is erase their history.
Oh,
I see. They're trying to erase their history by listening to history? You what now?
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Understand.
So I'm sorry. So let's say you learn about, let's see. What's a good example? Let me like let's say that you're learning about the War of 1812, right? Let's just say that you want to go over, that you're studying the War of 1812, and you know that the year it was a big year. The British and the Americans are fighting. There was invasions in Canada and all this other stuff. And then you go and you find out that during that time, while that was happening, you also find out that the Swedish Pomerania, Germany, was seized by Napoleon. You also find out that the first cargo arrives in New Orleans by steam from Natchez. That's fun. You also learn that about the Peninsula War. You learn, that poet Lord Byron makes his maiden speech in the House of Lords, and just snazzy. Let's see. The first flag of Argentina was raised in 1812. You find out all these things, and every time you find out, the British Prime Minister was assassinated by John Bellingham in the lobby of the House of Commons in London. Ironically, descendants of both later stand for the same seat in Parliament at the same time, but neither win. I don't know that it's ironic. It's just kind of interesting. It's an artist representation, just in case you think that's a photo. John Bellingham was executed, not shortly thereafter. You can find that about. And that upon learning of plans by the Americans to execute a surprise attack, Laura Secord walks 32 kilometers to warn British troops, results in a British surprise victory at the Battle of Beaver Dams. Canadian war heroine Laura Secord, which is why there's a Canada. Tecumseh, of course, his Native American force ambushes Thomas Van Horn's 200 Americans at Brownsville Creek, causing them to flee and retreat. Of course, he was siding with the British, and that didn't work out too well later on. But you find out all this stuff that happened alongside the Great Fire at Moscow. What would happen if every time you're trying to study the War of 1812, and if you learned about the Great Fire of Moscow, it erased the War of 1812. It just made it go away and just vanish.
Understand that. And one way to accomplish this is to blame the other party.
Oh.
How are they blaming the other party for this? What does this have to do with Republicans at all?
Oh. And who's the other party?
Who? Libertarian anarchists. Antifa. No, it's not Antifa. The Cub Scouts. No, shit.
The
Who?
Republican Party.
Oh, it's the Republican Party. Right. I forgot they were still a party. Are they still a party? Are they still a party? Does the Republican Party still exist?
Oh, that's what they're trying to do.
Oh, that's what they're trying to do. Well, they have to find them first. Sure.
So what they want to do, and if you remember, the Republican Party, they try to make the Republican Party look like the KKK.
Okay. They obviously don't have to try hard these days. That's
like
cool.
White supremacists.
Well, okay.
Look like they are the slave owners. Look like.
Well, there's slavery's been outlawed for a very long time. I don't know that there's a slave. I mean, obviously, Dixiecrats, and the early Democratic Party became Republicans over the civil rights. So that they definitely, when they're saying when they're fighting for statues of Nathan Bedford Forrest or Robert E. Lee, then obviously that's okay. Never mind.
Look like they are the one that wrote Jim Crow.
Well, see, the reason why is because people are ignorant to history.
Sure.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't know. Let me guess. You're going to tell us that the Democrats wrote all this stuff, and the Democrats were really that, even though, again, Dixiecrats became Republicans, Southern Democrats and Northern Democrats split, Southern Republicans joined the Northern Democrats.
That's why it's always good to go pick up a book.
Go pick up a book, especially one of Dinesh D'Souza's.
Right. Instead of Googling something, go to the library and pick up a book.
That's right. Go to the library.
And learn history and how all this here got started.
Exactly.
Right, but just don't pick up a book apparently on the Tulsa Massacre.
So when you hear
apparently that's the hard part.
Talk about Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Tulsa was a much smaller city, but it was a big deal.
100 years later, okay, what they're trying to do is associate what happened back then, all right, to the Republican Party right now.
Oh.
They are? How?
Y'all not going to be able to do that.
Because
well, yeah, I mean, it would be very hard because, I mean, especially if you're not even trying.
If you think about this,
I am.
When you hear the left talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, they keep saying the white mob.
Well, it was a white mob. I mean, arguably, it was a race war. It's really what happened. Nobody knows who fired the first shot. That's what they keep saying, which is sort of code for they think it was one of the black people who came to defend the kid who was, arrested. They think that was who fired the first shot, but they don't want to say because it looks like, oh, well, then they had reason for the thing. So they just kind of avoid the conversation entirely. It was definitely a black on white fight in Tulsa. The rest of the country is not Tulsa. You learn about this by actually not being afraid to address it.
The white mob. But
yeah, they were a white mob. I mean, it's not like a bunch of like natives and Chinese rail workers hanging out in Tulsa joined them.
What do they continue to label Republicans as?
Bigots and homophobes, obstructionists.
White supremacists.
Well, no, they're white supremacists, and the vast majority of them, I would say, are Republican. That's the idea, or at least view themselves as conservative somehow, because what they're conserving is a whites-only concept.
Come
right?
on, the KKK. Yeah.
Have I ever been to Tulsa? I have not.
Yeah. And so you got to remember, these were left-leaning organizations and groups that was used by the Democrat Party to manipulate, intimidate in order to dominate black people.
Now, see, that's what people don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This was a Marxist mob of left-wing, what?
That's right.
See, that KKK.
They don't know that.
A lot of them KKK members were Democrats.
Yeah, yes, the Dixiecrats, and they switched parties, and we all know this. That was the division over the civil rights movement that caused that shift. We're aware of that. You don't actually think that the old Democrats, the Southern Dixiecrats, that those folks are why the majority of black voters are Democrats or identify with Democrats. You don't think it's because they somehow side with the Ku Klux Klan? You don't think that there was a crisscross where they, all right.
Yeah. A lot of those KKK members sat up in Congress and made decisions for our country. That's right. Those were Democrats, you all. That's what
Yeah, and when did that stop?
they're not telling you. This white mob, what they're trying to do is brand all white people and make it look like they the one created this here.
Created it.
No. This wasn't all white people. These were these left-leaning liberals.
That's right.
Yes, a liberal white mob of gun-toting people in Tulsa 100 years ago.
KKK members that did.
Liberal KKK members are the worst. They don't wear, I mean, they wear like IKEA like t-shirt sheets and stuff, and it's all.
That's right. So what I call this is the bait and switch.
Sure, that's a good name for it.
Because they want to bait you up to make you think one thing,
and then they switch it.
Then flip it and switch it on you.
Oh, they flip it and switch it. So it's the bait and flip and switch.
To make you think it's
somebody write that down.
The Republicans. And you remember the Republican Party is the one that fought to free the slaves.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. And then the Southern Dixiecrats joined the Republicans because they believed in the states' rights aspect of things, and they fused a party together. And then the Southern Democrats that were against slavery and were for the civil rights movement became Democrats, and time moves from the past to the present, and it goes in one direction, and things happen in order. I'm just saying.
It was the Democrat Party that fought to keep the slaves.
Well, because they was protecting their interests. Remember, you all, they sat up there in Congress, y'all.
Yeah.
They sat up there as the House of Representatives making decisions is what they did.
No one makes a decision in Congress. What are you talking about?
Trying to protect their interests.
So this
what interests are those?
Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma took place in 1921.
Wikipedia is a hell of a drug.
During the Jim Crow era. Who wrote the Jim Crow laws once again?
Oh, those were Democrats. And can I just say this here?
Yeah.
The Jim Crow laws was not written for white people.
Right.
Those Jim Crow laws was written for black people, to undermine black people, to keep them stuck.
Yeah.
They wanted to make their...
Right. Which is why modern Democrats use Jim Crow as a pejorative.
Their lives miserable.
And why Republicans today avoid the label of Jim Crow as much as they can and try to fight against it because they don't want it to be associated with the schemes that they're trying, because they know it doesn't sell, even though they still want the plan.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
Let's make sure we point that out.
Yeah, please. Yeah, don't forget.
Because see, Democrats don't want to talk about their pay.
No, they don't want to talk about that.
They don't want to tell y'all the truth.
They don't want to tell you that.
What they want to do is continue to stoke the flames of racism. And this is the naked truth that we're talking about here.
And I let the community that was destroyed by this white mob who...
Well, I mean, I don't know that they were white mob. It was a mob of white people. They were white.
Was who? Democrats, white supremacists, the KKK.
That's right.
Under the Democrat Party.
That's right.
So they were all Democrats. It was a voting thing. It was just this. You know what? Really, the Tulsa Massacre was really just a Democratic get out the vote thing that just went wrong.
It was better known as Black Wall Street. Okay, the people there.
Yeah, that was the nickname for it. It wasn't actually Black Wall Street. It didn't set up a trading scheme throughout the entire country. It was just a very it was a flourishing community.
They built their wealth. They were successful. They were hardworking.
Right.
And it reminds.
And that's why Biden went there, was because that's a shame that it was destroyed. And that we would like to encourage there to be a resurgence in situations, and people who had the rug pulled out from under them maybe there's a way to help make some of that right. And so he went there to see if there's a possibility. I mean, obviously, it was for a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Reminds me of the Summer of Love last year.
Well, wait. That was not the Summer of Love last year. That was the summer of chaos and confusion.
That's right.
Yes, well, certainly. But, I mean, look at who was president.
Let me just say this here.
Please.
You know, Biden has been in government for 48 years.
48.
He was
Yeah, but he's only been president for 4
the
months.
vice president up under a black president.
Right? Yeah, and it's amazing that they were both Democrats, considering the history of the Democrats, according to you. It's amazing that 100 years after the Tulsa riot, that was a completely out of control Democrat mob, that the first black president has a vice president who's white, and they worked together very well as Democrats. It's almost as if you're talking out of your ass.
And now he finds it appropriate to talk about something that happened 100 years, but want to ignore what happened in the summer of 22.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't a strategic undermining of an entire community historically that cut against people's ability to get money and make a living going forward. You can remedy that now. There's still, you need to realize the FBI is looking for the people who are throwing firebombs and shit. They're actually in the process. No one went and looked for these folks. There's dead bodies in Tulsa supposedly that are buried in a mass grave, and nobody even looked. They're trying to find them now. 100 years has passed.
Up to 2020.
Yeah.
And guess what? It was not the summer of love. It was the summer of chaos, hate.
Well, I don't know. Some of us were stuck at home and, just want to nuzzle.
And confusion.
Racism.
That's what it was. So don't it look like all of this here is familiar? You can't pick and choose what you want to talk about.
Sure you can. Yeah, well, when we talk about history and history we're trying to remedy, that's different from things happening in the present that we're currently already dealing with.
What happened in 2020 is about the same thing that happened 100 years ago.
Okay, so basically, the chop is the same as the Tulsa Massacre.
That's
what we gonna do about 2020? Wait 100 years before we talk about it.
Well, no. I mean, obviously, we had an election and we got rid of the dude who was president when it happened.
Yeah.
Now, according to Jim Crow, Joe, and I'm going to tell it the way he told it.
What'd he say,
He said a young black male teenager was accused of attacking a white female teenager.
Right. That's the story. And this isn't Joe Biden telling the story.
And he was thrown in jail. Then came a white mob of about 1,000 people. They began to form outside of the jail. Don't that sound familiar?
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Because look at Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Anytime.
Yeah, I will say that that 1,000 white mob in the 100 years ago with rifles, ever so slightly different than people marching saying Black Lives Matter. I think it would be if by the way, the Tulsa Massacre would not have happened had 1,000 armed white people shown up at the courthouse saying Black Lives Matter. I think, as a matter of fact, that might have been the one thing. Good God.
They don't get the story right, or they just go off their own intellect on what they think.
Or they don't get the fact before they react.
Yeah.
No, they don't get no one checks the fact. What?
They go inform mob.
They go inform the mob.
Yeah,
Come on.
but I heard that they talking about some reparations. I keep hearing that word. But here's the deal.
What's the deal?
If the left want reparations, y'all better get it from the Democrats. How about paying yourself the reparations? Because all of this mess was put in place by the Democrats.
Come on.
Wait, so the white Ku Klux Klan, white supremacy Democrat mob that attacked, I guess, and nobody knows who attacked first. We'll stick with this story as they're presenting it. Who went down to the courthouse deserves reparations. Huh?
Come on.
Oh, and let's
not
forget about the vice president. Because it is being alleged that her family owns slaves. How about she cut y'all a check?
That's right.
Her family owned slaves, so how about she cut you a check? I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
So reparations.
How about
But don't think all
I mean, I know that there are people of color whose ancestors owned slaves. That part doesn't confuse me. I just don't know where the why don't you get her to cut you a check thing when we're talking about Tulsa. And she didn't Diamond just tell us you can't pick and choose what you're going to talk about? Maybe pick or choose something to talk about, because you're all over the fucking place.
all of the American people need to be giving everybody reparations for what happened 100 years ago when just 2020, last year, in the summer, businesses was burnt down.
Yeah, they had insurance.
Businesses was looted.
Yeah, but they weren't by an entire mob of people that made up half the town.
What about those businesses? That's right.
Well, they're insured, and then people got loans, and I mean, there's city rebuilding projects. There's federal funds that go through state and local entities that people who are affected by the protests can actually file for, repair loans and that kind of stuff. That exists. We have that. That I know it's too boring to cover.
What about those black businesses?
Yeah, they need help rebuilding them. And
I don't even want to hear it.
And then when you talk about the Black Lives Matter and Antifa, there are two left-leaning liberal organizations, just like
yeah, basically the Ku Klux Klan.
the KKK.
Right. Oh my God, I was joking.
And the white supremacists was back then. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, basically Antifa is the Klan. That's all we need to know. And finally the mask is being pulled
Now,
up.
same script, different cast. Now let me continue on real quick.
Same script, different cast. Well, the show's different then.
Now, Biden, he continued to tell the story about how 75 armed black men, including black veterans with guns from the Greenwood community, came out to stand guard to prevent this black boy from being lynched. Okay. So,
well, is it? I'm concerned that the two of you don't think that's okay.
some words was exchanged, some gunshots was shot, and we don't know who shot the first shot.
Right. That's the story, which means people are very concerned when they talk about this that the black men who showed up fired first, and they think that if they were the first ones to fire a shot, then that justified the people firing back, not the fact that it was like 80 guys and there was 1,000 people there and they were going to get killed, and so somebody shot to defend somebody else. Like anybody gives a shit. Like just tell us the history of it. It doesn't justify the burning down of Greenwood.
But 10 white people died and 2 black people died. Now, according to historian and author Kara Anderson, and this is how she tells it, the white mob was infuriated and angry that black people had the audacity to defend themselves. The white mob were upset that blacks used their Second Amendment to protect themselves and demand justice. It kind of seems really, really familiar. How I look at the Democrat Party, they do not like Diamond and Silk. Why? Because we have the audacity to think for ourselves, to think outside of the black box.
Is that why?
To get off of that Democrat plantation. And
it's a plantation, is it? I mean, I think it's because then why is it the Democratic president going to Tulsa to try and create some sort of reconciliation about what? I'm very confused.
they know that they're losing bad. They know that people are waking up from their hoop lie. They know this, and that's why they continue to stroke division, racism.
Never stop stroking division.
And segregation.
Well, we'll pick this back up when we come back. We'll be right back with more Diamond and Silk.
Yeah,
Crystal clear.
Crystal clear. Yeah, I have to say, I'm incredibly confused. It's amazing. Like, we got through the whole segment. We listened to their whole argument. And obviously they're reading from Dinesh D'Souza's storyline. But thank you, Robin. Thank you guys for the super chats today. I appreciate it. I have my my alert box turned off because it was making the video jaggy, and I don't know if that was the main reason, but we'll see. I mean, this is This is incredible. But this is the argument that they're making, is that the Democrats, because they were the Dixiecrats before the Civil Rights era, that's how they're judged. Never mind the fact that the Republicans are those very Dixiecrats who left the Democratic Party over black people being allowed to vote, joined and took over the Republican Party, and are the party as we know it now, because they saw that they had more power because of how imbalanced the Senate is. So, whew.